Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So I suggested that we talk about what we have done or thought about in connection with what I refer to as our literary estate once we pass away. And I'm going to just give you a little background about why I have been thinking about this lately. My dad was a writer, and he'll be 92 at the end of this month, and he has published 6 or 7 books on writing itself. He wrote several novels, but none of those were accepted by his agent. And this was back in the days before indie publishing and the internet. And, my mom hand typed his manuscripts. I asked him a few years ago if he still had the manuscripts for those novels, and he said no, he threw them all out. And that just makes me so sad. um, but anyway, he has I don't know what he set up for his books. I don't even know if they're still collecting royalties. I mean, you can type his name into Amazon and you can see the books there, but I don't know what that generates. The other thing is my parents are if there's a picture of a couple in the dictionary next to preparation, it's my parents. They've always, wills and trusts and, videotaping their house to have the contents, in case the house burns down or something like that. They do all of these things. And one of the things I've done is whenever my wife and I go on a long vacation or whatever, I send an email to my 2 adult sons about accounts and where they can find things and who they should call for various things. But I've never done anything in connection with my, again, literary estate. I hope that I hate that phrase, but I can't think of a better um, short shortcut for what I'm talking about. And so I reached out to someone and asked if they would be interested in managing it if something happens to me. And at some point, I'm going to follow that up with kind of what my idea is about what that might mean. And I'm just curious if any of you have done anything like this or if you've thought about it. What happens to your accounts at KDP or Draft to Digital or anything like that, where you published and you might be generating some sales and some revenues. What do you do with that? What do you do with the manuscripts that we all now have saved on computers? What about your works in progress? So anyway, that's kind of what I was hoping we could talk about to get some ideas or just see what other people are doing or thinking about it.
Well, I thought that since royalties are paid out for, I think, up to 75 years, it's either 50 or 75, that it would be a bit crazy to sort of leave it to my children because they won't be alive, presumably 75 years after I've gone up, down, maybe. I don't know, who knows. But anyway, um, so what I did is I left that to my grandchildren.
Okay.
And I haven't got round to it yet, but leave absolute instructions as to what should be done, how you cope with Amazon. But anyway, they could find out. I mean, they're not daft if they need to. And obviously, when bank accounts, royalties get paid into bank accounts, when whoever takes over that would have to liaise with them and they would have instruction to do so, to say, right, these are the bank accounts. You will now have to get hold of Amazon Draft to Digital, Ingram Spark, or whatever, to get the money transferred. Right, that's the one thing. The second thing is that I I've also got what I call a social media um, person to close down my social media accounts because there have been some horrific stories of people dying, passing on, and their accounts have been hijacked, and there is no one then to sort of stop people putting porn or whatever, etc., on there. So I do have um, uh, a relative to do that for me, right? So that they will close my Facebook, my Instagram, my
Yeah.
Twitter, whatever, etc., etc. And but in fact, my husband and I do have uh, really thought about it. We've got to have a will for Spain. We've got to have a will for South Africa. We've got to have a will for Britain as well.
Wow.
So we're really sort of pretty sort of sussed on that, and we know exactly where everybody, each other's passwords are, so that if anything happens to, well, when something happens to one or other of us, that we can go in and we find out where all the bank accounts are, where the insurance is, where we actually, I think we've prepared ourselves as much as we possibly can.
Your comment about social media, it's funny because earlier this week, Facebook suggested a friend for me, someone I know that passed away at least 5 years ago. So everybody who has social media accounts should have someone who knows their passwords and can do that because it's awkward when things like that happen. So anybody else?
I I'm in a kind of a unique position. Um, Statistically, the number of people like me is growing, I think. I am somebody who lives alone. I do have family, I do have friends, but I don't have children. I don't have a partner. And so even with my normal will, I just wonder who am I going to leave it all to? I mean, it's people in my family, but then I don't have my favorites, whatever. Yeah. So actually, facetiously, I've been thinking of holding like interviews. I think there was a movie that someone did that once. I don't know, but having interviews. But anyway, as far as the writing stuff is concerned and social media, I have thought a lot about it because um, in my mind, I would like to leave my literary, you know, belongings. I don't know what to call that, but to at least one of the people that, or at least one or two of the people that helped inspire my books. Because I think, the money, the house, and everything can go to whomever, but I feel like those people would entrust that content. I'm just an indie writer. That's the other thing. I'm a nobody. And I don't mean that negatively. I just mean statistically, nobody really knows who I am as far as my works. But should that ever somebody come across it, Confederacy of Dunces is always in the back of my mind. And should somebody push it and it becomes successful, I want people who at least respect it. Now, maybe you could help with this, Mark. I know that often with authors, I see because actually, um, I see that, because thinking about generation, I could leave it to somebody, but what if they go? What if they even go ahead of me? But now, who am I going to leave it to? But the see online and in print, et cetera, people say the estate of, especially for authors. It's, sometimes actors, but definitely for authors. It's the estate of, like Tolkien, the estate of Tolkien. It's usually the descendants. But is there a way to just set that up, name people to it so they could also then, if in their will, leave it to other people or et cetera? So there is a state managing your literary work.
I think it's just like any other aspect of your will. You appoint an executor of your literary estate, and they then become responsible for managing it in the way in which you direct them to, depending on how much control you give them, or just let them say, do whatever you want. And then you would probably set up something in the document that creates a mechanism for if they're unable, there's a second choice. Or if,
I want
30,
something
30
that can go down the line.
yeah, no, or 30 years later, the executor passes away, that would be an obligation that they would have to then pass on to someone else if there's still a reason to. I mean, 30 years from now, there may be nothing left to this because, like you said, we're all nobodies in the writing and publishing world, and that's kind of part of my query is this really even worth killing brain cells about? But I kind of feel like other people will have the responsibility for managing the rest of my estate, the finances, the house, the whatever there is. I want someone who is a writer who, like you said, respects what I've done and will keep that in mind if they decide to do anything with whatever I leave behind. And maybe some directions. I mean, ultimately, I do have two kids, and to the extent there's revenue in the future, leave it to my kids or their grandkids or, whoever is left down my, chain of descendants. But in terms of what to do with it, yeah, I want someone who's a writer who might have some ideas about what to do with whatever's left.
Right. That's how I'm feeling. But again, I just keep thinking like Lucinda pointed out, 75 years is something, I just the other problem is part of me really doesn't care because I won't be here.
Right.
Like mentioning, someone may hack into my site and becomes a porn site. If I were here, I'd get a big kick out of that. I'd be hysterical. But either way, I won't see the joke if it happens. So part of me kind of doesn't care, but real oddly enough, with the worldly belongings, but with the literary stuff, I do. Some part of me, I think it's because my fictional characters, I kind of love them and I don't want to abandon them. Yeah,
Yes.
it's weird. Uh, but yeah, and yeah, for the social media, just I haven't done that yet, but that is an excellent point. I really should get someone just to have all that information, if for nothing else, then to do what I did for my dad, which is to go to all his emails and online, et cetera. He
Yeah.
had the
Yeah.
button online and say that, he's passed away, et cetera.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, that's part of what I've told my kids is here's where you can find my passwords. Go on to all those accounts, let people know, and then shut the thing down.
Yeah. Yeah, about as far as shutting things down, that's an excellent idea. I don't have much social media, but you're right. It's best to just shut it down and tell someone how to do that. But has anyone considered with their books just having them unpublished after you're gone, and that way nobody has to worry about them? I mean,
So,
whatever is out there, but there won't be any more, to deal with.
so I
my,
learned,
go ahead. Sorry.
well, I learned that Amazon, well, the book is unpublished and it's unavailable for sale, but it is still up on Amazon. Anybody who searches my name will still see a book that I wrote 10 years ago that, due to some certain circumstances, I had to unpublish. So I don't know if unpublishing is entirely an option.
I was going to say there are two points. One is I was going to look into this because I remember when I first, which is now 8 years ago to almost the day tomorrow, when I first published a book, the digital stuff, and then it was called Create Space. The
Yeah.
digital stuff, especially as I opted for I didn't want to spend money, so I opted for them to get me the ISBN number. And there was some wording in their legal that if I do that, they kind of have the digital rights to that ISBN number. Even if I go get another one for a new issue, then that's mine. But they can still, if they want to, publish that. Now they no longer Create Space. I'm sure legally that just all got transferred over to Amazon, but that's not a detail I want to look into. And I don't technically care that much again, but I think to Mark's point in answer to you, Audrey, they can, if for some reason they wanted to, the digital stuff, they could republish or continue to publish is a better way. It'll exist there forever, which is a good and bad thing.
So if
And
one of us suddenly became super famous, someone discovered our books and made it into a movie,
Yes.
and
Yes.
suddenly we're in demand, then yeah, exactly. So I think it
yeah.
would be helpful to
Always a
leave
chance.
all that to somebody.
That's my second point. My ego refuses to let me believe that someday, even if it's 1,000 years from now, and it's Burgess Meredith on the library steps, whatever, but somebody is going to discover my work and say this is great, and make movie or whatever, or do something with it, and it goes to a wider audience. That's why I can't leave this world again. I
Right.
owe my characters. I can't leave the world without it. I want it to live long beyond me. It's my only monument to, again, maybe it's having no children, whatever, but it's what I want to leave the world. Like it or not, world, you get in those books.
Richard, I think you and I are a lot alike because ultimately I agree with you. I'm dead. Why would I care? And that's how I feel about so many things people ask about, blah, blah, blah after you die. It's like, I'm dead. I don't care. Now, there are certain things I don't want to have happen. For instance, Um, I have no interest in there being any kind of religious ceremony upon my passing, and I'm going to insist on that. But other than that, I don't care. I'm dead. But
Can I just say, I warned Carrie Rubin that we would be talking about today. um, but yeah, and again, take the religion out of it, because if the way I was brought up, Christian, etc. If I'm not here, I'm in heaven or whatever.
Right.
You don't look down. You've got
Right.
a whole new
Right.
world to explore. So yeah, when you go, you're done with this world, and all religions say that you're really done with here, no matter
Yeah,
what.
no, but the rest of what I wanted to say is I have two kids. They're now adults, and I kind of agree with you. They're my legacy, but what also is part of what I'm leaving behind is the things that I've created. My kids, my books, things like that. And so, if there is ever a time that people want to read my books in the future, then I want to have them available and have someone, who's going to take care of that.
There is one thing to consider, that if we do not leave our books, right? When I said royalties, I meant leave our books to somebody when we pass on. After that 50 or 75 years, and I'm not sure which it is, does Amazon then take the royalties and keep them? Because if they're being paid out, I wonder if anyone has ever asked that question.
Yeah.
And I guess, yes, they do.
I would think so.
Corporation,
Yeah.
or even if, let's just say this, they would, even if there was some legality where they shouldn't, but they would, because who's going to argue with them unless it's a big name and they've got a whole legal thing, so I would say the safe assumption is they get it.
Are you referring to the fact that like a copyright is only good for 75 years?
I believe so. Yes. After that, it's open sesame.
Yeah.
Anybody
So
can use it. You could go
so
make
I,
a film of your book in, say, 50 or so, because I'm not sure what the exact number of years is now. That they could then make a blockbuster movie starring, top
yeah.
stars of the day, etc. And neither you nor your family or your trustees or
Yeah.
your executives or anything would receive a penny of it.
We need
But I think the books that you publish through Amazon or Draft to Digital, if someone buys the book you published, you would still get the royalty. But someone, like you said, a movie producer could make a movie out of your book and not pay your estate anything. Someone else can, like there's all sorts of classics that you can now get for, zero, an ebook of Great Expectations for 99 cents, because anybody can publish Great Expectations now.
Yeah. The Gutenberg Press, in theory,
Yeah.
has got it on there, and it doesn't cost you a cent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the public domain issue, like with Winnie
Yeah.
the Pooh and the early Mickey Mouse, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've only ever thought about the physical stuff. For instance, the boxes of longhand manuscripts and notes and all that stuff. And also, I've kind of self-congratulated on always like all my published books are available in print, and I have print copies. So there are print copies hanging around. Not very many, but there are some. And I think, yes, that'll be what gets discovered in 2,000 years somewhere in a vault. But I know I really have to come to terms with all this stuff, and I'm glad we've had this discussion, because I haven't, actually done anything about it except vague thoughts. So yeah, I should make some notes and issue some instructions and find some people to lumber with my stuff, because right now there isn't anyone.
And somebody quite a lot younger than us, Audrey. That's the other thing.
See, that's the
It's
trouble.
no good
All the
doing it.
writers I know are old. They're at least as old as I
Exactly. Yeah.
am.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
So,
Very hard.
yeah.
Virtual, have you do you have any thoughts, comments you want to share?
Well, Richard's
You're not as close to this issue as the rest of us.
you never know. But Richard's comment gave me an idea, which is like, I will give my estate to someone, but they have to spend a night in a haunted house or something, like some condition like this. My second facetious point was that I'm going to create an AI to manage all my social media after I'm gone, and will just continue to act like me. but no, so more
Didn't you read a story that
I,
seemed kind of like that?
I did
Yeah.
actually. um More seriously though, I haven't given a lot of thought to it, but actually, what Audrey said is something I've thought about, and it's a reason I really want to get print copies of my books, because then there's a chance that my books can be read as I intended, which is someone scavenging through a post-apocalyptic wasteland comes on this like box of stuff and pulls it out and is like, "What is this from the before times? Wow!" And they start reading it by the light of a campfire. But
We
no,
will luck. Oh, sorry, we will luck out if it happens to be one of the last few left surviving. Then
Yes.
this is all there was.
it's something I should. I mean, I should think about it more. And I've often thought like, well, if I was ever in real danger or really ill or something, I'd send like all my not completed drafts to somebody. I don't even know who. I mean, I'd send it probably to one of you or maybe all of you, and just be like, here are these. Do what you want with them.
I think I've come up with an idea of what I'm going to do, and I'm saying this as a joke, but who knows? I think I'm going to take all the money I have in my savings, have that go have an executive dues, sell the house, which and take all that money and it goes into an account which will constantly pay to the advertising of my book until it completely
Marketing
turns out.
campaign.
Right. And then have the book left, rights to somebody. So when I'm gone, it'll just be constant advertising until there's no more money. That might work.
That is not a bad idea.
Who's going to get it all? The book.
I think my kids would be very disappointed if I did that.
Yeah.
Not that they're going to get much from me anyway. But one of the things I was thinking about while we were talking is I also have come to the decision after years of delay that it's time for me to put our assets into a trust. And I think when I do that, I'm going to talk to the attorney and see if they have any experience in setting up something like this as well and see what they come up with.
Well, it's kind of like people who leave all their or a considerable amount of assets to a pet, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
Somebody has, I mean, the dog or cat or tortoise or parrot or whatever isn't going to be managing money themselves, so someone will have to do it for them. And I wonder how many, I don't know, law firms or some, similar entities have those kind of responsibilities and just how that turns out.
I'm sure there's plenty. I'm sure that, this is something that estate attorneys do all the time. They may not maintain control. They may not be the party that ultimately has the control once the person passes away, but they set up the documents needed to ensure that whatever the person's wishes are put into effect.
And that could be done for literary estates too. I'm
Right.
sure probably more effectively than for a tortoise.
Yeah.
Well, in US and I know in UK and in South Africa too, you can leave your estate to whoever you want.
Yep.
But generally speaking, in Europe, your estate does go to your children in equal measures. So if you want anything different to that, you've actually got to specify that you're making it under AN other countries' law, which is something we've done. But the only reason I went in there to change at the notary to put the royalties and the book management of my books under my grandchildren is because that I wanted to sort of leapfrog over the fact that my children are less than 30 years younger than me. So that wouldn't cover the 50, 75-year age gap. And also, I mean, all of us could actually write down exactly directions of what they have to do. But who knows, in 10, 15 years' time, putting something up on Amazon might be quite different. The rules might be quite different. The parameters will be totally different. Yeah. So it's no good me saying, oh, you must put it up in a Word doc because now it has to be an EPUB.
Yeah.
So, it's very hard to guess an idea of what Amazon's going to. In fact, if Amazon still exists, who knows?
Yeah.
Well,
Knows?
part of this is again finding a person you trust and then giving them the discretion to do what they think is the right way to, go about handling whatever comes up, including technology changes and other things.
I mean, I'd like to say that all the print books, and I don't have that many of them in the house anymore at the moment, because I'm very sneaky. If I have a party, I often have a raffle and give them a book as a prize. Because I've got no real outlets here, big in a different language, that I would just leave a note to say, please, all the print books you find, put in the local library.
Yeah.
It sort of solves, Richard, your idea of advertising in a way.
True. That's not a bad idea either.
Well, if I talk to an attorney and get any useful information, I'll share it with you and probably put information on the blog as well.
Especially if and again, I'm not asking you to do this. I can go do this too, get to an attorney, but especially with reference to, the ISBN number, do I have to, like, maybe part of my will make sure that I create my own before I go if I, have some that were created by another entity and then just reissue. I mean, they'll still, like I said, digitally, they'll still own the original version.
Right.
But, I that's just all those little complexities I hate dealing with. They're not major things, but just having to pin them down and then, work them out.
Yeah, that's something I wish I knew more about too. When I switched to draft, when I used Amazon KDP CreateSpace, I just used their ISBNs. But when I switched to Draft to Digital, I decided to buy some ISBNs and bought 10, and then I published 5 books. So that, paperback and ebook, that used up those 10. And now I've decided I'm just going to use Draft to Digital's provided ISBNs on anything I publish in the future. And I don't know what's better. I really don't.
I'm actually thinking of even my original books, even if they own to getting my own ISBNs, only because my first book, I don't remember the order I did it in, but I think I did the print first, had them, get the free, and then they did the digital. And the second book, I think I may have done the reverse. I can't remember. But on the first one, Barnes & Noble and other sites pick it up, no problem. The second one, Barnes & Noble, other sites don't see it. Because, and in fact, originally, the way the ISBNs was set up, I had to have 2 ISBNs for print and digital. And now it was 1, which is, I got very confused in that. So I think I'd like to get my own, just so other vendors can pick it up more easily.
Yeah.
So.
My ISBNs come from Library and Archives Canada. Canadian publishers can get free ISBNs that way.
You get free.
So you didn't have to pay $250 for your 10 ISBNs?
No. The only
It's
thing
Canada,
that
that's
ask
why.
is that you send them copies. And I've sent copies of all my books to them.
The only plus about global warming is that I'm hoping Canada gets warm enough so that I will go there.
Well, we're pretty warm here.
Is there anything else on this topic or anything else anybody wants to talk about in the 4 minutes?
Well, it's slightly off piece on this, but Audrey, I get your blog every week. Now, does everybody in this group have the same blog under the same heading of Writers Helping Writers, or is that something totally different?
That's completely different.
Yeah, that's different.
Now, that's a different blog. Writers Supporting Writers is a different blog from any of our individual ones.
Okay, right.
And I only post to my individual one about 2 or 3 times a year. So it says, the subheading says possibly the world's worst blogger. Because but I do publish that occasionally.
And I'm posting to my regular blog less and less frequently too.
Yeah, which is a pity. I think, I've been following your, what is it? The Dead Horse.
You have? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I follow them, but for some reason, if I've ever tried to comment on either yours or Kevin's, he has one on whatever it's called too.
Substack. Yeah.
Yeah, it somehow it wants to put me through all these hoops to create an account and do this and do that, and so
Oh, yeah.
I just read them, but I don't comment.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
appreciate that you read them, but
oh yeah, I find them quite interesting.
you have to log in order to be able to comment there.
Yeah, I think I've even tried that, but anyway, I'm glad you keep writing either on your own blog or there. It's always interesting to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. I think Berthold and I had a back and forth on Twitter. I think it was Twitter. I don't remember where it was, but actually, it was on Substack about the fact that WordPress blogs seem to be dying.
Yeah.
There just is not the kind of engagement and activity on WordPress blogs as there were when I started there about 12 or 14 years ago.
Yeah, it's sad to see that. Maybe I'll have to start a Substack.
That's not necessarily any more active, but I know, Audrey, you still get a lot of comments and a lot of engagement on your posts. But
well, I find you have to work at it. Like
Yeah.
you have to visit other blogs and comment on them, and kind of be a real person in a lot of other places. And then
Yeah.
some of those bloggers will come and visit you back. And if you have something where people have something to say, I think it works quite well. And that's why I'm still concentrating on that rather than going to some other place. Because, well, I'm lazy. And B, I want to get to 1,000 posts. I'm like this close. And before I quit, although I don't have any immediate plans to quit. So yeah,
Right.
that's why I do it.
I
But I
hate to
noticed
think how many-
people, there's a fellow who's self-published a bunch of books, and he's cranking them out, and he's trying to build up buzz for the next one. And I see his face turn up on all kinds of blogs I read, but he never comments on anything anywhere else. And so I think his buzz is, at least on his blog, I think he's got other social media, but on his blog there is no buzz because he doesn't. And I found that with mine for the first few. Sometimes I go back and I revisit one of my old posts, and there's no likes on it. It's like nobody ever saw it.
Yep.
And I think that's because at that time I wasn't going out and showing up.
Yeah, you have to garner fans.
Yeah, you have to show up. And I mean, I don't fake it. I don't kind of, well, I
I
don't
think
know,
we're
maybe
about to run out of
sometimes.
time.
Yeah,
Not to cut you
But
short.
anyway, so that's my advice. You have to be out there.
Have a wonderful holiday season. We may not do this again until after the first of the year.
Yeah,
so
that's
happy
probably
holidays.
true.
Same
Okay.
here. Happy holidays,
Yeah,
everybody.
everyone.